Hello, guys. Welcome back to the MMASucka podcast, and this is your UFC 295 review and analysis. My name is Frazer Krohn. Let's jump straight into it because it was a really, really good event. It was the showcase. It was the birthday of the UFC, the 30th birthday, 30th anniversary, as it were. And what a show it was! Live from Madison Square Garden. We had a great fight week. There's one man for me that won fight week, and I'll go on to talk about him later on. But overall, it was just a really, really good card. The card, I thought, like I say, it was solid on paper, and in practice, it also played out. I'm going to jump into the main event now. I'm going to talk a lot about the main and the co-main, and then we're going to go on to talk about the rest of the main card. We're going to pick out a couple of fights from the prelims, and going to give you a quick preview. Sorry, on the fights that are going down this weekend, but I'm going to review them. I'm going to review them next week, next Monday, once they've happened. So UFC 295 main event. If you haven't seen it already, where have you been? In like I say, the main event between it was scheduled to be John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. What we got was Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka, bumped up from the co-main event to the main event. Alex Pereira knocks out Jiri Prochazka in 4 minutes and 8 seconds of the second round due to a counter right, several elbows when Jiri shot in on him, and ground and pound. What can we say about Alex Pereira? This is exactly what I thought might happen. The relaxation that Alex Pereira shows in times of potential desperation is admirable. He stays calm in the face of danger, and that comes from the wealth of experience that he's got in both the kickboxing and I say wealth of experience in MMA. He hasn't got a wealth of experience in MMA. He's got a wealth of experience in kickboxing, and he's taken that experience into MMA. I picked Alex Pereira to win. I actually went 5 out of 5 on the MMASucka staff picks that you can check out on the website now. But I knew that he would catch Jiri Prochazka at some point in this fight, and he just waited and waited and waited until he could, and that obviously came in. The big shot came in towards the end of the second round. What I would say is that why I knew this would happen was because of Jiri Prochazka's style. He's really entertaining. He fights a lot with his hands down. His shots come from strange angles, which I thought could have potentially caused Alex Pereira some issues. But what played out was a really solid, well-rounded, mature performance from someone that people are now calling one of the greatest combat sports athletes of all time. The leg kicks that he invested in early, they paid dividends later on in the fight because he was eating up that, I think it was the left leg. Yeah, the left leg of Jiri Prochazka, landing those lead leg kicks. Invested in them early, and it worked. He constantly called Jiri to switch stance, and we don't know how much his leg was hurting, but he didn't quite seem himself on Saturday night, and he did seem to be almost rushing things, not from the start, but maybe those leg kicks really did affect him, and he was rushing to try and get the fight sort of over and done with. The finish, the first time I saw it, I thought it was an early stoppage. I thought it was a poor stoppage from Mark Goddard. I've watched it back a few times and heard Jiri discuss it after the fact, and I have no issue with it. Completely changed my mind. What I did think is that he could have maybe taken a few more shots, but what's the point in a way? The elbows from Alex Pereira, we've seen them, the sort of Travis Brown-esque elbows. I think McGregor landed a few good elbows like that back in his heyday. It's just a really it was a good stoppage in a way. In another way, I can see why people do still, even after Jiri's come out and spoken about it, I can see why people think that it may be a slightly early stoppage. But we don't need to see guys, go stone cold, flat, stiff. It's unnecessary, to be honest. So the fight itself, like I said, that was pretty much the fight. There was only sort of 9 minutes to discuss. The first round was definitely a Jiri Prochazka round. He took him down. He controlled him. Alex Pereira just looked to survive on the ground more than actually, provide any offense off his back. But this is how he's got to the position to be a 2-weight UFC world champion in, I believe it's seven UFC fights. 6 UFC wins has got him to a 2-weight world champion. And now, yes, he's had a unprecedented rise because of the fact that he had this rivalry with Israel Adesanya, which got him to the middleweight title shot. But he hasn't really had a rivalry with anyone at 205, and yet he's still got that shot off the back of a single win against Jan Blachowicz. And obviously now he's the champion after the win against Jiri Prochazka. We have to talk about him in the conversation of one of the greatest combat sports athletes of all time. 2-weight glory. He's a 2-weight kickboxing world champion. It's not just any kickboxing organisation. It's the premium kickboxing organisation, Glory. He's a Glory Hall of Famer. Now he's a 2-weight UFC world champion. With that being said, if you look at the guys that he's faced in MMA, they've all been favourable matchups. And, well, all the guys that he's faced in the UFC have been favourable matchups. Second fight against Bruno Silva, big, a guy who loves to stand and bang with an opponent. Sean Strickland, a guy who, despite the fact he's got wrestling, won't ever really look to take the fight to the floor. I mean, that win's aged very well because he's obviously gone on to become the middleweight champion. He's still facing a striker. Of course, then we've got the back-to-back fights with Israel Adesanya, both of whom, both fights, obviously, we didn't really see much of a ground game from either man. Israel Adesanya, I think, he's credited with a single takedown in their first fight. But he's not a wrestler. We knew that was going to play out on the feet. Jan Blachowicz, not exactly a wrestler, although he did take down Alex Pereira 3 times. And Jiri Prochazka took him down once. I think he's only credited with 1 takedown, and that was in the first round. And he dominated him on the floor when they were down there. That first round, he clocked up 2 minutes 17 control time on the ground. Whether it was his choice, whether it was the choice of his management, or I think it was a bit of both. It's kind of the choice of his body. He was a massive middleweight. I think if there's a 195-pound division, I think Alex Pereira makes 195. But it's a good division for him to be competing at the moment. His next fight will likely be against former champion Jamala Hill, who yet again is a favourable matchup for him. He's a stand-up guy. I think he finishes Jamala. Oh, I think he beats Jamala Hill with relative ease, actually. For me, the 2 biggest tests for Alex Pereira are Magomed Ankalaev, who's just really well-rounded. And we can even look as far down as number 6 ranked Nikita Krylov. I think Nikita Krylov's a tough match for him because he's a relentless wrestler who can pull out crazy submissions from all different crazy angles. I think Ankalaev is going to be absolutely kicking himself after the Johnny Walker debacle last time out. I think it went down as a no contest. I think when he landed the knee on the grounded opponent, he's really going to be kicking himself because he could have been right in this title conversation. Instead, I think I read online over the weekend, whether it was just rumours or whether, I don't think it's been confirmed yet, that Ankalaev and Johnny Walker will be headlining a fight night in early 2024. The winner of that puts themselves in a very good position. But for me, Jamala Hill's next because he is the champion who essentially relinquished the bout because of the injury. I didn't understand the Israel Adesanya call out. I get that you want to get that one back because he's the guy that knocked you out. But Israel Adesanya's not a 205er. If they could maybe fight at a catch weight, let's say again of 195, but no belts on the line, I don't think Dana White would do that. So I didn't get that call out. I didn't really understand that call out. It is what it is. He's going to call out the guy that he thinks that he wants to get one back on. But overall, it was a really good performance by Alex Pereira. It was calm, cool, and collected, exactly what we expect of him. And he's a 2-weight UFC world champion after just 7 fights. It's phenomenal stuff. But he is not the man that stole the headlines. 2 weeks' notice, found out after the fact that he had an injury, facing the biggest puncher in the division, and Tom Aspinall comes in and does the job in under 2 minutes, knocks out Sergei Pavlovich in the first round. It goes down officially as 1 minute and 9 seconds of the very first round. Tom Aspinall becomes the interim UFC heavyweight champion. He won. He won the fight, and he won all of Fight Week. He stole the press conference, and he showed he's a genuine person who has no, bad blood with Sergei Pavlovich. I don't think he's got bad blood with anyone in the heavyweight division. He just comes in there and he just wants to be the best mixed martial artist that he can. And at the moment, of those that can fight at heavyweight, he is the best. John Jones cannot fight at the moment. He is not the best heavyweight on the planet at the moment because he is injured. Tom Aspinall is. The fight itself was extremely interesting for me. Yes, it lasted 1 minute and 9 seconds. I've watched the fight back about 3 or 4 times already. And because it's only 1 minute and 9 seconds, you can do that, with relative ease. The leg kicks of Tom Aspinall didn't actually look like they were doing anything, but you've got to consider that he's a 260-pound man slamming a leg kick. And now they weren't wobbling Sergei Pavlovich. It didn't seem to be, keeping Pavlovich off his game too much, but he's 260 pounds. They played a part in this fight. Officially, according to UFC stats, Pavlovich landed a single strike, but that one strike almost knocked Tom Aspinall's gummy out, proving just how much power Sergei Pavlovich had. And I think that maybe sometimes I've heard that fighters don't really wake up until they've been smacked in the face. Now, you don't want to take a big, clean smack in the face from Sergei Pavlovich because he's more than likely to put you out. But the one strike that he did land on Aspinall, he almost knocked his gum shield out. I think he sort of redded up the face of Tom Aspinall, proving just how hard this big Russian, hits. Which makes it an even better performance from Tom Aspinall that Sergei Pavlovich was only able to land a single strike on him. Aspinall's style of hands down by his sides and sort of moving backwards with his essentially using his upper body to avoid strikes and move out of the way. I don't know. For me, it had me on the edge of my seat. It had me worried. You don't want to do that against Sergei Pavlovich because he's deceivingly long. He had a big reach advantage in this one. Let me just double check Sergei Pavlovich's reach. It's 84 inches to Tom Aspinall's 78. So he had a 6-inch reach advantage. And Aspinall was moving away with his hands down by his sides. But he's perfected that. And that is exactly how he fights. It's exactly how we've seen him fight many times. And he's mastered it. Could it get him into trouble later on in his career? Perhaps when he loses that little bit of speed. It might get him into trouble, but he seems at the moment to have absolutely mastered that style, which is why he's the best heavyweight on the planet. The finish itself came when he stopped trying to throw with Sergei Pavlovich down the pipe. He cut the angle, caught Pavlovich, and the follow-up shots were just brutal and effective. And for me, it was the moment that he landed. I think he landed 2 hammer fists, but he landed the ground and pound. Landed ground and pound. Referee Dan Mergliato jumped in, pushed off Tom Aspinall. I think it was a really good stoppage as well. Obviously, the stoppage was absolutely just, but the speed in which Dan Mergliato managed to get from where he was into range to push Tom Aspinall off to prevent Sergei Pavlovich from taking any damage was really good. But for me, the moment of the night and the moment that I will remember this fight by is Tom Aspinall being pushed off and just lying for half a second or whatever it was, just lying face down on the mat and realizing what he's just achieved. It was phenomenal. I don't think I wrote an article about this. I'll link it down below. I don't think this is the last time we'll see Sergei Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall compete. I think these two guys are the future of the heavyweight division. Tom Aspinall especially. Born in 1993, making him 30 years old. Sergei Pavlovich, born a year prior, 31 years old. For heavyweights, that's no age at all. No age at all. And I think these two guys, along with the likes of, your Cyril Gans and your Jayton Almeidas, to a degree, maybe your Sergei Spivaks and some of the guys coming through, these guys are the future of the heavyweight division, without a doubt. All the respect in the world to Stipe Miocic and John Jones, but everybody thought that even if this fight had gone ahead, but both men would be retiring after this one. So we've got to ask what's next for Aspinall. For me, Cyril Gane called him out. I'll put the tweet. I'll try and put the tweet on the screen now. But Silgan called out Tom Aspinall and said that he's kind of waiting. He's the hunter now. Khan didn't want to fight Aspinall when Aspinall didn't have the strap. This was back in September when they went to France. Aspinall essentially was calling for the Cyril Gane fight, and he didn't want it. He was too focused on the title. So in my eyes, on Tom Aspinall, I'm the A side now. I'm saying absolutely no chance. I don't want to fight you because you didn't want to fight me. I think, don't get me wrong, I think the two will meet eventually down the line, but not next for Tom Aspinall. I think he should do something that's pretty unprecedented. I believe only Renan Baral's done, and he should defend the interim title against Stipe Miocic at UFC 300. He did say UFC 300 is kind of the date that you're going to be working towards. Obviously, it's November now. I think it's around March, April time. Sorry, it's April. It is April because we had the 3 fight announcements last week. It's April that UFC 300 is scheduled for. That fight makes sense. Fight makes all the sense in the world to me. For me, John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, it's not recency bias at all. John Jones versus Tom Aspinall is a much bigger fight. There's much more jeopardy for John Jones in that fight than Jones versus Stipe Miocic. All the respect in the world to Stipe Miocic, the most successful UFC heavyweight champion of all time, without doubt. With that being said, I think there's a lot more danger in Tom Aspinall. It's the old school versus the new school, as it were. John Jones's injury that kept him out of this fight is a serious, serious injury, and he'll probably be out for 9 months to a year. Rumours that he's maybe even looking at next year's MSG card in November, or even International Fight Week if he can come back a little bit sooner in July of 2024. If he comes back in, let's just say that he has to have a year out to heal the injury. I think it's a pec tear. I just want to double check that because I don't want to. Let me just double check because I can't remember. I've seen the video and I can't remember that what injury it was. Yeah. Well, he tore the tendon that connects your pec to your bone, and he tore it off the bone. 8 months out, he's going to need surgery. So you're looking at International Fight Week. That's 8 months out, and we don't know how that surgery is going to go. We don't know what his recovery is going to be like. So there's a chance that we won't see John Jones for at least another 12 months. That means, and he competed in March this year, that means he would have had a year and a half out of the octagon, not defending the belt. Stipe can't wait that long because it would mean that if he had to wait until next November, it means that he would have been out for over 3 years and without a win in over 4 years. I know a lot of people are commenting on the video of Stipe Miocic walking into the arena and he's kind of limping. For me, I put very little stock into that. This guy is a full-time firefighter and a full to part-time fighter, should we say. I put very little stock in the fact that he was kind of limping to octagon side this weekend. Who knows what's gone on in his personal life? We don't want to go assuming I'm putting no stock.
Not sure I understand. Is there something else I can help with?
Me neither. I'm not sure that I don't put any stock in that. But for me, Stipe versus Tom Aspinall for the interim heavyweight championship, UFC 300, book that. That's the fight for me to make. That's the fight to make for me, sorry. And I just really think that it makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to go on now to talk about the rest of the card from main card. I'm going to touch on a couple of the fights on the undercard. But for me, this card was an 8.5 out of 10. Now, that's very high, but the main card saw 5 knockout finishes, all of which came in under 3 rounds. We had some good finishes on the prelims. We had a really, really fun fight on the prelims. We had plenty of talking points, as well. Plenty of sort of feel-good factors. Could have been a 10 out of 10 card for me. I just think a couple of those fights didn't really deliver. And one of the fights that didn't really deliver in the way that I anticipated it going was Mackenzie Dern versus Jessica Andrade. First things first, Dern needs to, whoever is her striking coach, she needs to sack her. Him or her, sorry. I'm not privy to why she stopped working with Jason Perillo, but Jason Perillo is one of the best in the game. And she actually looks like she's not only stagnated, but she's taken steps backwards with her striking. What do we know about Mackenzie Dern? Her wrestling's not great. Her stand-up's now atrocious, but she's so dangerous on the ground that it's got her into the position that she's in now. I said in my preview that I don't think her takedowns are very good. She got a takedown accuracy of 14%. 14%. And I know that doesn't take into account the times that she's kind of pulled guard in her career. Regardless, 14% is a pretty shocking takedown accuracy, sorry, for someone who is as dangerous as Mackenzie Dern. I'm just looking now, there's not a fight where she's really sort of stood out. If you look against Marina Rodriguez in I think it was her first main event, 1 of 8 on her takedowns. Against Tisha Torres, none of 5 on her takedowns. Yan Xiaonan, 2 of 11 on her takedowns across 25 minutes. Angela Hill across 25 minutes, 3 of 9. And Jessica Andrade in this one, none of 4. That takedown within the first couple of sort of seconds of the fight, I don't think was it wasn't counted as a takedown. She got the head and arm. She sort of judo through her, but she got the head and arm through her. But there was no control. Jessica Andrade, hand on the back, pushed her off, and she got out of that position. She was never in any danger. I don't even think she was given any control time for that at all. You got 4 seconds. No control time in the first round, so that wasn't counted as a takedown. She was falling over her feet when she was going to strike. She was leading with her hands, which, you always want to take your feet with you when you're striking, because otherwise you are going to fall over your feet. And although she did land on Andrade a few times, she overdid it. She landed on a few times on Andrade, looked too excited, looked like she was really, over the moon that she actually managed to land on the striker, and then was trying to follow in her work again, sort of just leading with her hands. And it cost her, the knockdowns that Andrade landed in the second round were all because Mackenzie Dern was landing on Andrade, and then she'd just follow in, and there'd be no defensive awareness. Her chin would be up in the air. Something that the commentary team picked up on. So I've just thought of something else I want to talk about. So I'm just going to quickly put this in my notes because I don't want to forget it. Yeah, so she was chin up in the air, and it's a big win for Andrade. But the thing is, she made it look easy. 4 total knockdowns, all were, and in my opinion, all of the knockdowns were avoidable from the side of Mackenzie. It wasn't that Andrade put on the performance of her career. I think she's performed better in some of the losses that she's had this year. Without a doubt, although she didn't get the finish against Lauren Murphy, that was a far better performance than this one against Mackenzie Dern. But for someone, she's competed for the belt at 115 multiple times. She's been a 115 champion. She's been in multiple main events. She's been in multiple title fights. She's fought 115, 125, 135. This was not one of Jessica Andrade's greatest ever performances, but it didn't have to be, because Mackenzie Dern was so far off the pace. Andrade just she just had to do the basics well. She just had to cover up when Mackenzie Dern did land on her. She just had to stay calm. She used her eyes perfectly. I think Jessica Andrade's vision is very underrated. She just used her eyes, keep her eyes on Dern, saw Dern coming, counter, and it really paid dividends. It's so frustrating because Dern looked as if she was having, she's on a bit of a run going into this one. Mackenzie Dern, I think Mackenzie Dern. So yeah, she'd won 2. Well, she wasn't on that great a run. I thought she was on a much better run than she was. She's won 6 of her last 8. She lost to Marina Rodriguez and Yan Xiaonan. With that being said, with the state of the strawweight division at the moment and the kind of star that Mackenzie Dern is, there's certainly, a bit of a future for Mackenzie Dern at the upper echelons of this division. You've got people like Tatiana Suarez. Tatiana Suarez versus Mackenzie Dern would be fascinating because it would be essentially a stand-up battle, because Tatiana Suarez would look to ordinarily, you'd think Tatiana Suarez would look to get the fight to the ground. You don't want to go to the ground with Mackenzie Dern. It's a massive, for me, it's a massive missed opportunity for Mackenzie Dern. And she needs to go back to basics. Sort your boxing out. Sort your feet out. She threw almost no kicks in this fight as well. Mackenzie Dern. She was constantly being landed on the leg kick from Jessica Andrade. Just looking at a couple of the stats here, Mackenzie Dern landed 5 strikes to the leg in the first round. Jessica Andrade landed 12. She landed none in the second round. Jessica Andrade landed 7 of 8. Go back to basics. 1-2, making sure that you got your jab and making sure that you're taking your feet with you, because that's something that she really didn't do. Yes, she landed on Jessica Andrade, but I'm just really disappointed in the stand-up game of Mackenzie Dern, because, again, I still think that she's got a future in the championship question. As a champion, I don't think so. In the championship question, there's a high potential that she does, but she has to get back to basics, back to those fundamentals, and team back up with Jason Perillo, because I'm not really sure what happened there. I don't know why those two have stopped working together, but team back up with Jason Perillo, because that is the best she's looked, is when she's been working with Jason Perillo, with her dad in the corner, Megatron Diaz. And for me, that's where she went wrong. Her stand-up game was atrocious in this one. It is kind of rude to say, I guess, but it is atrocious. Her wrestling, none of 4 takedowns. I know Jessica Andrade has got a very good takedown offense at 72%, but none of 4 for someone that's supposedly, this elite grappler is certainly questionable. But first things first, get those fundamentals down. Take your feet with you when you strike. Don't lead with your hands. Take a leaf out of Jessica Andrade's book and work on your timing through your eyes, through your vision, because that's something that Andrade did. She stayed calm in the chaos. Saw when Mackenzie Dern was throwing a shot and managed to counter. Really good performance by him. Well, I say really, again, I want to circle back. It was a good performance by Andrade. It wasn't a phenomenal performance by Andrade, because it didn't have to be, because Mackenzie Dern left her so many openings. What was a phenomenal performance, however, was Benoit Saint-Denis, the god of war, the 1 minute 31 knockout of Matt Frevola. We knew going into this one that it was going to be fireworks, and Benoit Saint-Denis delivered. He delivered. He put on, between him and Tom Aspinall, I think Benoit Saint-Denis was arguably the performance of the night. Definitely knockout of the night, if we're still giving out that award. For me, knockout of the night without a shadow of a doubt. We knew it would be violent whichever way this fight went, whether it went to Frevola, whether it went to Benoit Saint-Denis, whether the takedowns and it turned into a bit of a grappling affair. But it did go in favour of the Frenchman. 1 minute 31, knocked Frevola out cold with a brutal high kick. The fight was taken to the ground. The two men then sort of, they were then grappling in the clinch. I think Matt Frevola may have, Benoit Saint-Denis may have caught Frevola with something in the clinch, because he sort of backed away and almost ran away. And Saint-Denis, massive head kick, big knockout. He'll be ranked this week, and rightfully so. I'm looking at the rankings now before they've been updated. Matt Frevola is ranked number 14. Probably kicked Drew Dober out of the rankings. Matt Frevola will drop to 15. Saint-Denis, in my opinion, should come in at around 12 or 13, but he has to get a ranked opponent next, without a question. And for me, it's either Jalen Turner, who we saw put on a magnificent fight with Dan Hooker, or it's Rafael dos Anjos as a changing of the guard. Rafael dos Anjos ranked number 10. Book that fight, because I think that's a really competitive fight, but he's going to be top 5 in the title picture, without a doubt, Benoit Saint-Denis. I think he's so well-rounded. I think he's a really fun fighter. I think he's got that kind of style that, he's got that kind of style that will have everyone tuning into every single one of his fights, and rightfully so. As does Diego Lopez, the man who opened up the main card against Pat Sabatini. Diego Lopez is legit. He's really fun to watch. He finishes fights, and he finished this fight having reacted to Sabatini's takedown really well. He caught him on his way back up. He's got 2 finishes in 3 fights, but more importantly, he's got 2 finishes in fights that he's been scheduled to actually fight. He lost a close decision to Movsar Evelev on short notice on his debut. To be honest, I don't think that was I think that loss has done in the world of good. He's come back, triangle armbar against Gavin Tucker in the first round back in August, and then comes big knockout of Pat Sabatini on Saturday night. He should, in my opinion, get a ranking next because of how close his fight with Movsar was. If he doesn't, he needs to get a fight against someone who is on the edge of the rankings. So for me, next would be a Danny Ige, Edson Barboza, or Lerone Murphy. Any three of those guys make a lot of sense for me to fight Diego Lopez because, like I said, he's a finisher. Danny Ige never been finished, I believe. Let me double check that stat because I'm pretty sure Danny Ige has never been finished. Yeah, 7 losses, all by decision. So that would be a highly, highly competitive fight. You've got Edson Barboza, who's coming off a big win last time out against Sadiq Youssef. Yes, he's been finished, but he's on a 2-fight winning run now against Billy Q and Sadiq Youssef, performance of the night and fight of the night. Or Lerone Murphy, who of course is still undefeated. Lerone for me is still on the brink of a top 15. He's ranked number 14, but he hasn't quite got the fights, and his last outing wasn't exactly convincing. If they do choose to go outside of the rankings, Bill Algeo makes a lot of sense. Billy Q himself does make a lot of sense. Or Mohamed Narimov, the man who beat Nathaniel Wood last time out on Fight Island. I think any of those 5 guys make sense. But really, really fun main card. Like I said, 5 finishes, all in under 3 rounds. Really, really good main card, which is kind of what carried the card from throughout the night. Elsewhere on the prelims, Lupe Godinez broke the record for the number of wins by a female in a single year, which with 4 with a decision win over Tabitha Ricci. I really like Lupe Godinez. I think she's a solid takedown artist, but she can mix it up on the feet when she needs to, and we've seen her do that. We saw her. Last time out she got the rear naked choke. She scored the knockdown against Elise Reed, 5 takedowns. This fight, no takedowns. Still won the fight with pretty convincingly. If we go through the girls that she's fought, lost to Jessica Penne on her debut, bounced back with a performance of the night winning submission. Then lost to Luana Carolina. Then bounced back with 2 dominant wins against Loma Lukbome and Carnasoli. Carnasoli won for short, 230-26s in there. She outstruck at 130-23, took her down 8 times. Phenomenal performance. Big step up in competition then against Angela Hill. Narrowly missed out on that fight. But then since then, she dominated Cynthia Calvillo. It's gone down as a split decision. I don't think that was a split decision. I think Lupe won that with relative ease, in my opinion. She beat Emily Ducote in May. September, she submitted Elise Reed, and now she's beaten Tabitha Ricci. Again, like Diego Lopez and like Benoit Saint-Denis, I think she gets a ranking. Tabitha Ricci was ranked. So she's already ranked. Lupe Godinez, ranked number 13. Tabitha Ricci, ranked number 10. So she should get a top 10 ranking, really. And depending on how this weekend goes, she could leapfrog into a top 9. I'll go on to talk about that a little bit later on. But we can't talk about the prelims without talking about Sadikov versus Boroshev. Phenomenal fight. Boroshev dominated the first 7 minutes, but then was caught. Massive head kick, almost finished him he was almost finished in the second round. The third round was a really, really close fight, just dogging both guys. And I think a draw was probably a fair result, to be honest. I think, it was a really good fight. Book it again. I don't care. It was a really good fight, and I'd watch it over and over again. And just to sort of close out the show, Jared Gordon putting on a really good performance against Mark Marsden. Marsden now back-to-back losses when he's taken that step up in competition to, he's finished by Grant Dawson, finished by Jared Gordon now. But Jared Gordon, really fun, really, really good story. And if, Jared Gordon was to call time on his career, I think he's a legitimate, bona fide UFC fighter. He's been in the organisation now since 2017, and he's deservedly got a number of big fights. what I would say is he's got a backstory that should be on any chat show, on any show. But yeah, Jared Gordon, really good, TKO finish. His first TKO finish since, just trying to look, his first since his UFC debut in 2017. So really good performance by Jared Gordon. The thing that I took a note on earlier, I do just want to sort of ad-lib a little bit on Joe Rogan. Now, I don't think Joe Rogan had a bad card at all, this card. But what I would say is that there's a lot of clamber to have him back on the pay-per-views. Obviously we know famously that he doesn't travel to, whether it be England for the pay-per-views, Abu Dhabi, Brazil, Australia, anywhere. I'm not sure if he'll travel up to Canada for the pay-per-view next year. He exclusively does pay-per-views sort of in and around his remit, as it were. What I found when watching a lot of the card was that he kind of checked out, in my opinion, Joe Rogan. He relied on the other guys to have done all the research, and he pretty much just as ridiculous as it sounds from a commentator, he just commented on what he was seeing, which is what 90% of people could see themselves. Oh, he'd just become a good leg kick, good low kick. Oh, he'd caught him with a jab. It's just, for me, whether it's just me being a little bit of a snob, but I can see that it's a good jab. I can see that it's a good low kick. I can see that, we can see what's going on. We're watching the fight as well, Joe. The point in a commentator is to have that little bit extra that maybe we don't see. Comment on the footwork a little bit more. Comment on the fact that he's switched angles and this is what that means. I almost want someone like Joe Rogan, who's got a whole host of experience. And it's not just Joe Rogan that does it, it's a lot of the other guys that do it. But I want them to almost be commenting on the fight like they're in the corner of both men. So I want Joe Rogan to be saying, for example, Tom Aspinall, needs to be doing this. He needs to cut the angle. For Sergei Pavlovich, he needs to continue with these straight shots, but he needs to avoid that leg kick, for example. In the Lupi Godinez fight, for example, I want Joe Rogan to be telling me what she needs to do to really cement this as a win, and what type of reach she needs to do to win the fight. In the main event, I want Joe Rogan to be telling me how Alex Pereira can get back to his feet after Jiri Prochazka has been taken down, after Jiri Prochazka took him down, and how he can prevent that from happening in the future. What I do think is really good about Joe Rogan is he's so knowledgeable. He's good with the post-fight interviews. I don't know about interviewing Jiri Prochazka after he's just been technically knocked out, but luckily he wasn't knocked out cold. But it's just a little gripe that I had that Rogan seems to be. I don't think he's got many pay-per-views left in him, but he seems to be doing it a little bit half-assed at the moment. Like I said at the beginning of the show, this weekend will be broken down. Sorry, this upcoming weekend will be broken down in more detail. Next week, like I've always said, I like to review rather than preview fight nights, because we don't really, there's names on this fight night for sure. We've got the headliner between Brendan Allen and Paul Craig at 185. Brendan Allen has been the sort of nearly guy, he's nearly got there and he got beat by Chris Curtis. Now he's on a 5-fight winning streak, but you look at some of the guys, Sam Alvey's on there, Christoph Jock, Jacob Malkoun, Andre Muniz on short notice. It was a short notice main event, and then Bruno Silva. They're all good wins. They're 4 finishes out of 5, but they're not against the elite guys. Paul Craig's been in there with the elite guys. He's got a win over Ankalaev. He's fought the likes of the former champion and beaten Jamala Hill. Beating Nikita Krylov. He lost to Johnny Walker. He finished Andre Muniz in his middleweight debut last time out in July in London, I believe that was. Let me just double check that. I'm pretty sure that was in London. It was in London. So this is a really fascinating fight, because Brendan Allen's wheelhouse is on the ground. And where is there one place that you don't want to go to with Paul Craig? It's on the ground. Paul Craig will bring the intensity to this fight without a doubt. He's the older man. He's the more experienced guy. You know, he's 35 to Brendan Allen's 27. I can see Paulie Craig getting this done. I can see him getting it done by finish. It's fun. It's a really good, you know, it's a really good fight. He's got 13 wins by submission. Brendan Allen's 11 first-round finishes. So don't expect this one to go the distance, guys. I think it's a really good fight, as is the co-main event. Michael Morales, undefeated, 15-0, is one of my ones to watch last year. He's 24 years old, 15-0, 3-0 in the UFC with 2 finishes over Trevin Giles and Adam Fugi, and a decision win over Max Griffin last time out. Really, really good Ecuadorian fighter. But he's taken on the experienced Jake Matthews, who himself, you know, he's only 29, but he's had a whole host of fights, 19-6. Last win against Darius Flowers. I think that must have been a late notice fight. Yeah, well, he was meant to fight Miguel Bieza. Bieza pulled out of that one for whatever reason. This one's fun. I think Michael Morales may get a statement win here, just over a name that pushes him a little bit further up the card, up the rankings at 170. You've got Chase Hooper versus Jordan Levitt on the card. Amanda Hebas makes her return against Ulana Pinheiro. Forgive me if I've pronounced that wrong. I'm going to call her Joanna because I can say that. Last time out, she got the split decision win over Michelle Waterson Gomez. She looks like a talent. She's 29 years old, but you know, Amanda Hebas, where's she at in her career? She's one of the ranked strawweights. She is ranked. She's ranked number 11 at strawweight. She was the great hope at one point, and then she was finished last time out against Macy Barber, so she's looking to bounce back. We've got Christian Leroy Duncan on this card, which, on a personal note, with him, he's looking to bounce back from his first professional loss against Arman Petrosian last time out. He takes on Cesar Almeida, who is making his UFC debut after a win on the Contender Series. So Medic returns on this card. See, there's a lot of names on this card. Lucy Pudilova returns after her controversial loss. Teammates of Tom Aspinall, the new interim heavyweight champion. Mick Parkin returns after his dominant UFC debut victory. Jonathan Pierce is on this card. Charles Crazy Horse Johnson's on this card. So there's a lot to watch on this card. It seems like an all right card on paper. We'll have to see next week when I break it down. But we've also got a Bellator card this weekend. 2 title fights. Yaroslav Amosov versus Jason Jackson. Amosov may just be the best 170-pounder on the planet. 27-0. 9 knockout wins, 10 submission wins, 8 decision victories. Hasn't finished a fight since August 2020. Taking on Jason Jackson, who himself is enjoying a 6-fight win streak. Beat Paul Daly his last 4. I mean, to be honest, I didn't put a lot in Jason Jackson, but if you look at his last 6 fights, his last 5 fights, I mean, Jordan Mean decision, Benson Henderson decision, Liam Gracie decision, Paul Daly decision, and Douglas Lima decision. You know, these are all really good victories. He's been out for over a year now. I don't think he beats Amosov, but it's certainly a competitive fight. Co-main event for the bantamweight title, Sergio Pettis versus Patchy Mix. Sergio Pettis, of course, couldn't compete in the bantamweight tournament due to injury. Patchy Mix won that tournament, became, I believe it was the interim bantamweight champion. In stunning fashion. Now, I didn't think that Patchy Mix would get that far in the tournament. He obviously did. He beat Horiguchi by decision, submitted Magomedov, and knocked out Ruffian Stotts. This one is a really good fight on paper. I'm really excited to watch this one. 5 rounds. Sergio Pettis versus Patchy Mix. We've got Patricky Pitbull versus Alexander Shabli on this card as well. Really competitive fight, that one. We've got the rematch between Ruffian Stotts and Danny Sabatello. And opening up the main card, we've got AJ McKee versus Sydney Outlaw. AJ McKee, if you remember, hasn't actually made that great a debut into the lightweight sphere. Beat Spike Carlisle by decision, beat Roberto de Souza by decision, hasn't competed this year at all. But of course, we'll see him compete on Saturday night. And just, there's a little bit of British interest on the card. Tim Wilde is on this card. And I do believe, I read this morning that former flyweight champion Juliana Velasquez is actually out of her fight with Paula Cristina, so that one won't go ahead. But be sure to tune in next week, guys, to the MMASucka podcast with me, Frazer Krohn. I'll be breaking all of that down. I'll be breaking down the UFC Fight Night Paul Craig versus Brendan Allen card, and of course be looking at the Bellator card and previewing the next card that we have, which is, let me just have a quick look. So I know that we've got back-to-back UFC events now for, I think, maybe even rounding out the year, if I'm not mistaken. No, we've got a week. I apologize, I lied. We've got a week off, and then we've got the big one, UFC. I think it's live from Texas. I can't remember. Give me 2 seconds, guys. So we've got the big one, Austin, Texas. So we've got UFC Fight Night, Allen versus Craig. That'll be breaking down next week, so tune in for that. I've hopefully got an interview coming later on in the week, so keep an eye on the YouTube channel for that. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Drop in the comments. Discuss. Do you think that Tom Aspinall is the current best heavyweight on the planet who is able to fight at the moment, or do you still think John Jones or Stipe Miocic or Sorgan would beat Tom Aspinall? But at the moment, guys, it's Tom Aspinall's world. We're just living in it. It's just a phenomenal performance from big Tom Aspinall. I'm so glad for the guy. And England has a new champion. That makes 2 current champions and 3 champions overall. And the future is certainly bright for British MMA. So take it easy, guys. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next week.